Hi, my name is Bill Schaeffer, and today we have another book review, the Slavonic Josephus. In a previous book review, we introduced the works of Josephus, who wrote the Antiquities of the Jews and the War of the Jews. Now, as mentioned there, the interesting thing is the war against Rome took place from 66 AD to 70 AD, and Josephus wrote his narrative in the decade after the war. There's almost no mention at all of Jesus, and that's an odd thing, considering that in the New Testament he's the Son of God and the King of Israel, and the most important thing that could possibly happen. And that's kind of an odd discrepancy between the two sources, and there are not many other sources from that time. Now, scholars have discovered a text dated to around 1100 called the Slavonic Josephus, and it's a translation into Slavic from Greek. And apparently there's ways to determine by word order and other descriptions what the original language of a translation was, or there's ways to help identify it. And the curious thing about this text, the Slavonic Josephus, is that it has a number of additional references to John the Baptist and Jesus. And apparently, those additional references were also originally written in Greek, that they're not Slavic addition to the text. Like they weren't written after the text was translated from Greek into Slavic language. That they also were part of the original Greek text, even though they may not have been part of the original text that Josephus originally wrote. Now, a little history. Josephus was a general in the Jewish army, and he was captured early because he was stationed in Galilee. And he became a member of the Roman army and started writing his works during the campaign. And there's supposed to be a version, the first version of the War of the Jews, that was written in Aramaic. And then later, when he left Israel, he rewrote it in Greek. But none of those original Aramaic texts still exist. All we have is the original standard accepted Greek text. Now, as far as the Slavonic Josephus editions, most scholars think that they're forgeries for a number of reasons. One reason is that John the Baptist is about 30 years older than Jesus. And John the Baptist, according to the few things here, started his missionary and his mission around 4 AD. So he would be 30 years older. And there's other differences too. The way that a certain ruler is described, and the Jesus character himself has 150 followers instead of 12. And these have always been a stumbling block for historians and for theologians when looking at this text to determine if it's authentic. Now, without going into a lot of details, it seems to me that it's highly likely that the text is authentic, because it's not written with any early Christian symbolism or lingo at all. It's entirely written from the vantage point of an author who was traditionally Jewish and thought of the world in a Jewish way. The way he describes the ministry and the miracles are not in traditional ancient Christian symbolism at all. And same with the story of John the Baptist. Now, a few things interesting. He describes John the Baptist as eating tree food. As far as the discrepancy of the ministry of the times of John the Baptist, now, according to a number of sources, the earliest book, the Gospel of the Hebrews, that doesn't exist, which was the text of the Ebionites, which is the name of the first Christians who actually knew Jesus, if he existed. And the Ebionites were the Jewish Christians in Jerusalem and the surrounding area from 30 or 40 AD till 65 AD. And then they left and went to Syria before the war against Rome. They don't believe in the virgin birth anyway. And their narrative, the Gospel of the Hebrews, doesn't have a virgin birth. And so the whole story of John the Baptist being conceived 6 months before Jesus by Elizabeth and Mary, it could be a very poetic addition or embellishment of the story. And that seems more believable to me, that Jesus, John the Baptist, were just born normally. And John the Baptist, probably, if he had that much authority, could very well be 30 years older than Jesus. As far as the number of followers, there's also a poignant part about him disdaining, you don't have to necessarily go to church, and he emphasizes behavior. And then there's some also miracles related to the crucifixion and the curtain in the temple being torn. All this is interesting, and the verdict's still out, obviously. But I suggest that the Slavonic Josephus, you can get it online, and I put the web address below. Check it out for yourself. Read it for yourself and see what you think. That's all I'm going to say. It seems very compelling to me that this is an honest eyewitness account. It seems to be in the style of Josephus, and most of the supposed contradictions don't ring really true to me and can be explained away. That it would be removed from the Josephus text because it conflicts with the canonical text is not at all unbelievable. Because during the 4th and 5th century, when the church consolidated, the Roman church consolidated its rule in the Roman Empire, it closed all the libraries and all the hospitals and all the books that weren't the Bible or a few religious texts were burned. And all of science and engineering and medicine and law and literature and drama was lost, was gone. And that's why we have so little of the literature of Greece and Rome today. And the literature that has survived outside the Roman Empire. So with a government or an institutional structure that had that much control over literature, one of the great mass book burnings of all time in the history of mankind, it's not inconceivable that they would have the power to alter all the texts that existed of Josephus, and that the only text that would be more authentic would be the Slavonic Josephus. Now, it is also interesting to note that the Eastern Orthodox Church considers itself to be the holder of the original true right, and their, according to my limited understanding, their rights are more anciently authentic to the character of original Christianity than Roman Catholic or Protestant religion has become, the rites and traditions in those churches. In fact, the Russian Orthodox Church considers itself to be the preserver of the original true faith. And this schism between Russian Orthodox or Greek Orthodox and the Roman Catholic occurred around 1100, around 1000. If you're interested in early Christianity and the story of the early Christian church, then I highly suggest you read an English translation of the Slavonic Josephus. Just the excerpt. Read the whole Josephus, the War of the Jews, read the Antiquity of the Jews, and then read this excerpt. It's only 6 to 10 pages long. And see what you think. Read the arguments for it and against it, and make up your own mind. In any event, it's a fascinating artifact from history, from almost 1,000 years ago, or possibly 2,000 years ago. Therefore, I highly suggest reading the Slavonic Josephus. Thank you, and leave your comments below.